Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And we are at the All-Star break in the 2025 season. Our Rockies are not doing well at all. A 30-66 record, 96 games into the season. So we've got 66 games left to go. I've mentioned a couple of goals over the first several episodes of this series. And these are not very ambitious goals, but I would love to get the team to 55 wins, so our winning percentage is over .333 by the end of the season. And I'd also like to get past Chicago White Sox, so we don't have the best record in baseball. Don't know how realistic either of those goals are, but we'll hopefully play a bit better over these last 2.5 months of the season than the Rockies have over the first 3.5 months of the season, including almost 2 months now with us in charge of the team. And last episode, we were able to get out of one key bad contract, trading away Mr. Senzatella. And we now potentially finally have an opportunity to get out of the worst contract on our team. I'm a little surprised this is potentially happening. Kris Bryant is just back from an injury that he's experienced basically his entire time that we've been in charge of the team. A very pedestrian batting profile at this point, fragile physically, 33 years old, and he's making $27 million a year for the next 3.5 seasons. The previous regime did DFA him, so he made it to AAA. Clearly, nobody claimed him. That would have been wonderful if that had happened. But did not happen. So now he's on AAA, and he is not on the 40-man roster right now. And offline, I shopped him retaining 100% of his contract, and there was absolutely no interest. When we add in Chase Dollander, who's in theory the number 25 prospect in baseball, that at least puts us into a situation where when we shop Mr. Bryant and we are willing to keep every penny of his contract as well as include a top prospect in the trade, we can actually get things done. Now the issue for us is can we include a couple other players and get the retention of Mr. Bryant down to a more palatable number? Talked in detail in the tutorial video I did about a week ago about the settings we're using here, so not going to rehash those. We're on the hardest trade setting, and we've got some other things set up. Given that we've kind of talked about the settings we have, I don't necessarily want to be playing with a ton of house rules, but I don't think I want to do anything more than a 5-to-1 trade. I know some of you probably don't even like 5-to-1, but that's probably the most I will let myself go. The most interesting-ish player out there that we were able to potentially get in return to me is Miguel Vargas, first baseman, almost 26 years old. He's been a league average offensive player this year. The year before he was below average in a very small sample size with the White Sox after he came over there from the Dodgers. But not a horrible guy to get in return. I'd honestly be happy to get someone worse in return if it meant that we could get them to have us retain less of Mr. Bryant's contract. But I think we can probably get this down to a relatively palatable number. We're going to have to include some talent in addition to Mr. Dollander to get there. But at this point, if I want to kind of start moving this series forward, I feel like getting rid of Bryant's contract would be a huge step in that direction. And I've got a deal together that will get 70% of the money that we were supposed to pay Bryant over these next 3.5 seasons off of our books. So from that perspective, it's going to open up almost $19 million a year for us for the next 3 seasons, which is pretty big. The issue is we're going to be giving up not just Dollander, but 3 other decent players along with him to get the deal done. Appreciated the feedback on the Senzatella trade from the last episode. I'd say the reaction was pretty mixed from the worldwide scouting department on that. About half people thought it was a really good move just to get rid of Senzatella because he's so awful as a pitcher at this point. But there was also about half of the viewers who opined on it thought that I gave up too much, including Zach Veen along with him, to basically only save $6 million next year. And I get that thought. This will be more impactful in terms of the money that we're saving. But as I noted, we've got to give a bunch of players, and they're all guys in their early to mid-20s. 3 of them are starting pitchers. My theory is I don't know how well any of these pitchers are going to work in Colorado. Chase Dollander is the best of the group. Looks like if he reaches his full potential, he could be a respectable back of the rotation starter. But those extreme fly ball tendencies and the potential for him to perhaps be a bit below average in terms of keeping the ball in the park, I don't think are going to play well in Colorado. We also have to give up Jake Madden, a 23-year-old who throws in the mid-90s, average stuff, average movement. Think he's going to have some issues with control. He is durable. Spent this year in high A ball. Not a top-notch prospect, but certainly some hope that he could become something. Brahan's Barreto, a little bit better stuff, a little bit better control. Another guy who reaches the mid-90s on the radar gun. A lefty, 2-4, but with a 2.60 ERA in high A ball this year. I definitely like, and we just did actually promote Barreto up to AA. I definitely like Barreto more than Madden. I think I'd rank them Dollander, Barreto, and then Madden. And then the last guy that we included, I really don't want to give up, but I really want to get as much of Bryant's contract off the books, and it looks like he's, I guess the White Sox, who do have a lot of money available, are hoping maybe that they get a little bit of a bump bringing Bryant back to Chicago. I am a little concerned given that he is still extremely popular, which is shocking given that he has now spent parts of 4 seasons in Colorado and played only 170 games and been a below average offensive player. But we're probably going to take a hit trading him away. But I just want to get that money off the books. Anyhow, I kind of all over the map here. The last guy that we're including is Ryan Ritter, 24-year-old. Only put up an 83 WRC plus in AAA this year, but think the bat can be an acceptable bat for an infielder at the major league level. Averages speed with pretty good stealing ability. But what I really like about him and what we've been working on him is getting him more versatile defensively, playing him at third base this year, because this is a guy who can play an above-average short, second, or third defensively with an average-ish major league bat. Really was envisioning him being an important utility infielder, if not maybe more, depending on how his bat developed for us. But the White Sox, place a decent amount of value on him. I think when we put Barreto into the trade, it let us move from us having to retain about 60% of the contract to about 30%. So I don't love giving him up. We do get Vargas in return, who I think could have a interesting bat. I don't really like him defensively anywhere. He's a first base, left field DH kind of guy. And it seems like we always have plenty of those kind of guys. In a way, he's kind of a replacement for Zach Veen. I think you could argue that Vargas' bat might be a bit better than we traded away in Veen, but the defense is a little worse. But he's certainly not an entirely useless player to get in return. I just got to get this Bryant contract off of the books, and given that there has been so little momentum previously in terms of us trying to get it off the books, I want to just do it now, even though our assistant GM says that this is a stinker of a deal. I think he may still be a little bitter that I took his job, so I'll take anything he says with a grain of salt. But would love to hear thoughts of the worldwide scouting department on it. I'm guessing it'll probably be similar to Senzatella, where some of you will say, hey, we got a bad contract for a bad player off the books. You did what you had to do. And I think there's some who are going to be like, you gave up a couple of 23-year-olds and a couple of 24-year-olds when you're a rebuilding team with a horrible roster. What the heck are you thinking? And I definitely get that sentiment as well. But I don't love our minor league system. I don't think any of these guys are ultimately true difference makers, even though they all could end up being useful major leaguers and perhaps more successful in the cases of the pitchers away from Colorado. But we're going to go ahead and complete this trade. Hey, we traded for an all-star. Hooray. I did see that Vargas was an all-star. I'm wondering if it didn't seem like he had the kind of numbers that would make him an all-star this season, but I did mean to click on him to see when he was an all-star. Yeah, it was this year. Oh, that's right, because he's with the White Sox. He's the White Sox crappy all-star with the 231 batting average and the 100 WRC plus, just like we had our crappy all-star with a middle reliever this year, because every team needs one. So the positive news there is that now, although we do have to retain $8 million a year for Bryant for the next 4 seasons or 3.5 seasons, that's a lot more palatable than what we had before. Bryant is largely gone. Senzatella is completely gone. Kyle Freeland may be back from his elbow tendonitis just before the trade deadline. I don't know whether we'll be able to get him off the books or not, but at this point, I'd love to. And with the money that we saved by getting most of Bryant's contract for the rest of the year off the books, we do have some money available, which will help us sign the players that we drafted, since we were over budget with some of the offers we ultimately had to make. The other thing that this might let us do, we've talked a lot about our personnel and our scouting director. We kept Danny Montgomery on board because he's excellent with amateurs, but we did just get through the draft earlier this week. We are scouting some other players for potential trades, but I think that if and when we get to the trade deadline, I might just fire Montgomery now, pay him out with this extra money that we have, bring on a scout that I like better, who's a little better, so we can kind of preemptively start aggressively scouting for the upcoming free agency period, rather than firing Montgomery in late October, early November, right when the season starts. But we'll see how things go over these next couple of weeks after we get through the All-Star break and hopefully get into a situation where maybe we have an opportunity to get Freeland's contract off the books also, and really just somewhat surprisingly get to kind of reset a lot of the financial obligations of this team before we even get to the first off season. Freeland's the guy that we've shopped the most aggressively, even compared to Bryant and Senzatella, and it just seems like nobody wants to touch him at $16 million for next year and $17 the year after. But I didn't think we were going to be able to get out of Kris Bryant's contract either, and we're out of 70% of it at this point. And unfortunately, a pretty significant injury to the highly paid player that we plan to keep around, Ryan McMahon, out for a month with an intercostal strain. I believe he's the second guy on the IL for us with that injury. No, I thought we had somebody with that injury earlier. Tovar's dealing with a couple of injuries at this point, but we are now down our starting shortstop, our starting center fielder, and now our starting third baseman. And we were not that good a team to begin with. And with the injury to McMahon, another youngster coming up to the team, not Kyle Farmer, Cole Carrig, 23-year-old, started out this year and spent most of the season in Double-A Hartford. We just promoted him to Albuquerque a few days ago, and he went 6 for 8 in a very small sample size there, including 3 extra base hits, a couple of doubles, and a triple. Really like the glove. We're going to play him every day at third base. Also a guy with pretty good speed. Could maybe turn into a useful player for us down the line. So it's going to be a trial by fire at the major league level for the young switch hitting third baseman. Also meant to mention that we're bringing up another lefty, Carson Palmquist, to make his major league debut. He was 4-4 with a 5.34 ERA in AAA Albuquerque. Doesn't throw that hard, has extreme fly ball tendencies, and likely will allow a fair amount of home runs. Don't necessarily think he's a big part of our future, but we'll see what he's got. And despite our injuries and our general level of mediocrity would be being generous, we did take 2 out of 3 against Minnesota coming out of the All-Star break. Interestingly, all 3 games were 1-run games. So anytime we can take 2 out of 3, we'll take it. Did see something very interesting here that I just noted. Started to find some international prospects, and we got a real good one here. I've talked in past versions of the game how like to invest heavily in scouting, like to have scouts who are good with internationals, and like to devote a big part of the scouting budget to internationals. Can't say that that's all happening here, as our scouting budget isn't all that high, and as I was just talking about, I'm probably going to fire our scout. But he did make a incredible scouting discovery for us. 16-year-old Jose Panjas, starting pitcher whose stuff looks like it could be off the charts, well above average movement, very good at potentially keeping the ball in the park, even though he does have extreme fly ball tendencies. Potential 5-pitch arsenal, averages control, good stamina, potentially outstanding at holding on runners. This is one of those just random things that you're going to luck into from time to time. And we happened to have come up with a really good one. Only 3 guys in our international complex. We have only been scouting them for the last 2+ months since we took over, but bringing a guy like Panhas on board is very exciting and adds to the young talent at pitcher that we tried to pick up using our first 3 picks in the draft on pitchers, and then we made that trade for Braden Nett earlier, who's not as good as he looks. This is on the comparison of single A rather than the majors, but Braden Nett, I think, is getting close to a potential promotion. Started the year in Double A in the San Diego organization. He's 3-2 with a 2.53 ERA for us in Double A. We're probably going to keep him at that level for 1 or 2 more starts till the end of the month, and then promote him to Triple A. Certainly optimistic that he could become a pretty important pitcher for us in the hopefully not too distant future. He's considered the second best prospect in our organization at this point, behind only Charlie Condon and one of only 2 top 100 prospects we have, period. And we just won another series, taking 2 out of 3 against St. Louis. So just a week until the trade deadline now. And we have made one of the deals that I was thinking about. This is really just a shot in the dark, but the price was low enough that I felt that we had to do it. Picked up Elvis Peguero, a 28-year-old minor league pitcher for the Milwaukee organization. Had a 3.18 ERA in AAA Nashville, but he's an extreme ground ball guy who throws in the high 90s. We've been talking about trying to get some of these ground ball pitchers into Colorado, and they also actually were willing to throw in Aaron Ashby as well, another extreme ground ball pitcher who has put up an ERA of close to 7 this year for Milwaukee. So I don't know if either of these guys is going to pan out, but all we had to do to pick them up was send them Kyle Farmer, who's been an important infielder for us this year in a utility role, hitting .273, 88 WRC plus above replacement level, a guy that can play a lot of positions. With our starting shortstop and third baseman already on the IL, definitely doesn't help us this year to trade away another infielder. But as I mentioned, 34 years old, he's going to be 35 in less than a month. Very unlikely that we were going to exercise that team option for $4 million next year. Would expect that we would be going with a bit of a youth movement. So I figured we'll take a flyer on a couple of pitchers that at least may have some higher probability of a level of success pitching half of their games in cores than many of the guys on our team have right now. And to make room on the pitching staff for some of these ground baller types to see what we might have with them, we tried to retain all of Austin Gomber's contract and can see we can actually get decent players in return. It's just all guys who are making pretty big money. So we may just waive and DFA him. I'm assuming he's out of options. He does have an option year left, but he's got enough service time where he can refuse the assignment. But he's put up an ERA of 7.61 in 12 starts for us this year. I don't think we're losing anything. Making $6.4 million. He's not going to be with us next year regardless, so might just dump him now. Yeah, Gamba refused a AAA assignment, so we waived and DFA'd him. I think we're going to try something similar with Tyler Kinley. He's put up a 5 ERA working out of our bullpen this year. I mean, maybe he's got some small amount of trade value. We're certainly not going to exercise his $5 million option next year, but I guess might as well shop him retaining 100% like we did with Gomber and just see if maybe there's a path to not have to eat his entire contract either. We can get a lot of very mediocre guys making a lot of money in return for him, so might just waive and DFA him as well. Kinley is 34 years old, does have 2 option years left, but with his service time, he can refuse an assignment too. Ooh, actually, we'll try to just demote him. Oh, he actually accepted the assignment, so he'll be a little organizational insurance for us. And we're going to give Ashby an opportunity to start for us. Pagero going to work out of the bullpen. Both of those guys a little bit below average in terms of their control, so not ideally what I'd like to have, but they will give us a couple more extreme ground ball pitchers to see if perhaps things work out a little better with them than the guys they're replacing, and they're also a little bit younger. If we catch lightning in a bottle, those guys could be helping us for a few seasons. And since we're not really in contention for anything except the worst record in baseball, I don't think we're going to be making any other significant trades. I think at this point, going to see what Kyle Freeland looks like 2 days from now when he's hopefully healthy. See if maybe we can get that contract off the books also. And then after that, I think the only thing we may try to do between now and the trade deadline is pay out our current scout, hire a new scout, use some of that little windfall from getting Kris Bryant off the books to clean the decks a little bit more as far as our coaching staff and our finances. Oh, and interestingly, I meant to check on this after I had talked about it, but it doesn't seem like there was any impact to fan interest from trading away Kris Bryant. I don't know if that's because he was no longer on the Major League roster and he was already in AAA and he had been waived and DFA'd off the 40-man, or maybe the game has gotten a little bit better in terms of how that metric works, and because he's been so awful while he's been in Colorado and he was making so much money, maybe the fans actually just said good riddance to him. Speaking of good riddance, Freeland ready to come off the IL, so we can potentially try to trade him. We have not seen much interest at all. If we retain 100% of 2-1's contract, will there be any takers? Obviously, these ratings are wrong since I was looking at the PCL. But we can, similar to what we've seen on some others, we can get a real bad contract in return. I guess my question is, somebody like Chris Martin, who's in the final year of his season, final year of his contract, 39 years old. I just can't imagine that they're going to take on any significant amount. Yeah, they still want us to keep 90% of Freeland's contract, so probably going to find ourselves in a situation where if I really want to get Freeland off the books in the next couple of days, we're going to have to just add in a bunch of other prospects with him like we did with the trades of Senzatella and Kris Bryant. And it looks like we can get Freeland off the books largely as well. We're going to have to retain 20% of the contract, but in my mind, he's pretty much useless. I was confused a bit as to why the Rangers, whose goal is to build a dynasty, would be interested in trading Kris Martin, who's got a sub-2 ERA for them this year. He is 39 years old, but the real reason is that although their goal is to build a dynasty, they are, like us, a last-place team, although they're not quite as bad as we are, but they're tied for the Angels for last, 14 behind in the AL West. So, as a big market team, I guess they're willing to suck up Freeland's contract to bring on some talent. Couple guys in the mix here that I don't love giving up, but a couple guys that I'm happy to give up. The guy that I'm happiest to give up is Everett Catlett, 23-year-old. Has some negative personality traits. I don't think he's ever going to be a big-time pitcher. 1-6 with a 3.65 ERA in A-ball at 23 years old. Happy to give him up. Jack Mahoney looks like he could be a useful major league starter. 23 years old, 60 stamina, 2-4 with a 4.91 ERA in Double-A after he got promoted from High-A. Don't think he's an ace by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly if he continues to develop a bit over the next couple of years, he's a useful back of the rotation pitcher. Really don't like giving up Braxton Fulford. He's older, 26 years old, but a respectable defensive catcher with a respectable bat. Was kind of thinking he might be our backup catcher next year, but not going to let holding on to a 26-year-old backup catcher keep us from potentially getting Freeland off the books or Freeland off the team and most of his money off the books. Then we also had to give up another 23-year-old starter, LeBaron Johnson Jr., potentially above average stuff, but we think his movement and his control could both be below average. Throws in the mid to high 90s, another guy who best case scenario is a respectable 4th or 5th starter. Given how horrible our pitching is, I don't love giving up all these guys who could be potentially useful back of the rotation arms, but I really love the idea of just cleaning the decks with this team. So we're going to follow up getting Senzatella completely off the books. 70% of Bryant off the books, and we'll get 80% of Freeland off the books. And I feel like the prospects we had to give up to get Freeland off the books, at least at the top end, weren't as strong as either Zach Veen or Chase Dollander. So I might be crazy with what I'm doing, but maybe I'm doing the right thing with these trades. Giving up a lot of young talent, but I really just want to clean house on some of these bad contracts to the extent I can. So we're going to go ahead and complete that trade as well. And now we've got cash available, so we are also going to, since we're not going to do anything else before the trade deadline, just get firing our scout out of the way. And we've somehow won a 3rd straight series, taken 2 out of 3 against Baltimore, 3 left at Cleveland before we get to the trade deadline. We did end up firing our scout, so we are waiting to hear back from a new scouting director that we're hoping will be joining us in short order, and we'll cut out having to wait and make the replacement at the end of this season. And Michael Hill has agreed to become our new scouting director, so I think that will be hopefully a nice upgrade for us. Hill is a highly favored tools scout who's excellent with amateurs, excellent with international, excellent with the minor leagues and good with the majors. So hopefully he's a guy that we'll really be able to build around for an extended period of time in this playthrough. And unfortunately, as we head towards the trade deadline, we were swept in the 3-game series in Cleveland. So despite winning 3 consecutive series, 2-1 coming out of the All-Star break, with that sweep of us in Cleveland, our record after the All-Star break drops all the way down to 500. Austin Gomber did not accept the assignment to AAA, so we waived and DFA'd him, and then tried to send him to AAA again after he had cleared waivers, and he refused the assignment. So we also just released him and accelerated the rest of the money we owed on that contract, but still feel like we have made a little progress in this episode, getting some bad contracts mostly off the books. Gave up a lot of talent to do it, but I feel like we've at least, despite the fact that it's been a rough year for us, we've at least kind of cleared a lot of the dead wood off of this franchise. So as we sit here past the trade deadline on August 1st, 36-72, we have got the winning percentage up to .333, so we're on pace to do what we need to do. We are still 2.5 behind the White Sox in the battle for the worst record in baseball, so still have some room to improve there. Take a quick look at the team statistics, and we somehow had a winning record in July, 13-11. I have no clue how we did that with the roster that we have. We are still second to last in the league in runs scored and last in the league in runs allowed, exactly where we have been ever since we took this team over. But not surprisingly, it's not quite as bad as that team that was on the field in March, April, and early May that had that 7-36 record when we took them over. Since then, we've gone 29-36. So we've certainly been bad, but we haven't been historically bad since we took over. And hopefully we can be borderline mediocre the rest of the way. But I'd say even though the team is playing a little better on the field, the main thing that we've done is get Senzatella's contract gone and significantly reduce what we're going to be paying Bryant and Freeland going forward. So hopefully we'll have a relatively clean slate coming this off season to start trying to rebuild this franchise from the ground up. And next time around, we'll finish up this season, we'll sim through the playoffs, and we will get to the off season, because that's when the real interesting work will finally begin. Until our next episode, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.